when I had a film, I met with multiple agents, but no one wanted to sign me. But when I sold my film to Lionsgate, and we got a press release on that and everything, then agents wanted to sign me. So my first movie is a terrible film, but I know what I had to go through to get there, and I felt it deserved an Oscar in terms of how we got that movie done.
Thinking about projects, is there, you've done so many different genres. Is there a genre that you like to stick to more? Is there one that you want to do more right now? Or do you like doing so many different ones?
My very first project, my very first film project, what could go wrong went wrong.
So what inspired you to start making movies? And how did you make the transition from creating electronic press kits and visual effects to directing feature films?
Well, ever since childhood, I loved films, and I was always a weird kid because in the summer times, I would spend drawing and writing stories and coming up with ideas while watching movies all the time, while a lot of my friends went outside and did things and everything like that. So I was always kind of the weird oddball kid. And then I've started doing, when I moved to LA, I started doing things such as creative directing and DVDs and trailers and things along those lines, EPKs. But I got to work for the studios, and I got to be on set a lot of times, and I got to meet a lot of actors and directors and other people. And it was an opportunity for me to kind of switch and go into my own films and stuff like that. I started with a short film and commercials, and my short film led me to my first feature film. So that's where it was.
Very nice. I think, with the trailers, I always find that it must be so hard to make a trailer, though, because you have to, show an entire film in an engaging way in a short little bit, but not give too much away. So that's a big skill right there.
Well, a lot of times, too, they will give you only certain clips. Sometimes they won't give you any clips, and you have to come up with a teaser trailer for it. And so it depends on what assets they give to you, and then they tell you what you can and can't use. Very rarely do they give you the whole film and be like, cut a trailer from this. That they'll do that if it's already been released, but if it's a brand new trailer, they won't do that very often.
Interesting. Oh, that's cool to know. So it's even harder because you don't know the full scope of what you're working with. Then you have to really narrow it down.
Right. That's gosh. Right. Yeah.
My brain would never do that. I'd be like, you're on the top right now. So you often write, you direct, you produce, and you even act in some of your own projects. Is there a side of the industry that you feel most at home at? Okay,
so just to be clear, I do all of those different roles because in this industry, in order to survive in expensive LA, you have to do a variety of things. If you only do one thing, it's much more difficult to make a living out here. As a if I take on a project and I'm writing and directing and acting and producing, I'm getting paid for all of those roles.
Okay.
So it'll last me a lot longer than as opposed to saying, I'm just the writer on this. And then also you have a lot more control on it and your vision of what you want to do and everything like that. So that's a very important thing. And during these times, there are times where I'm just hired as a writer, or I'm just hired as an actor, or I'm just hired as a director. It's not that I get that for every one of my projects. It's just you pick and choose what you want to do or what you can do, basically.
Love that. So really it's just being a smart businessman. Genuinely.
You have to be smart and survive financially out here in LA because it's very expensive.
Yes, unbelievably expensive. And you said the control aspect of it. You do get to have a much more rounded, I feel like, control of your project and get to see it with your vision come to life a little bit more.
Absolutely. That's a very important thing right there, is just to be able to see your vision come to life.
Absolutely. So at the end of the day, you've been thinking about it for so long. Between literally from the writing stage to actually then getting to see it come to life. So that's such a beautiful thing to see all together.
Absolutely.
With that said, in a project, has there been a project that was the most challenging? And in that challenge, what did it teach you?
My very first project, my very first film project, what could go wrong went wrong. It was, if you ever saw a documentary called Lost in La Mancha, it was worse than that. But basically, and it taught me to be extremely persistent, and it taught me to really try to get to the finish line. My first movie is a terrible film, but I know what I had to go through to get there, and I felt it deserved an Oscar in terms of how we got that movie done. We had issues that, we had the Santa Clarita fires that happened out there. Then we had, a week after, when we finally got out there, we had the floods happening. We had actors that left and were like, we're done, we're jumping on to other projects. We can't finish your movie for you.
Oh my gosh.
And so literally we're trying to find creative ways to put the scenes together. So it went to visual effects for a lot of those scenes, to digitally composite them into some of the scenes. And when I say we, I gave it to 2 editors. I remember giving it to 2 editors, and they came back to me and they said, "You don't have a finished film. Like I don't know how to edit this. It's a mess." And so literally, yeah, we had all kinds of issues. I mean, we had the guy who was the location guy for this mansion that we had it set for a certain amount of days that we were going to have it. And he came up to me after the second day and they said, "Yeah, you're going to have to leave after tonight. I'm renting it out to a studio." And I go, "We have a deal." And they're like, "Yeah, you're going to have to sue me or something because we're done. You got to pack your stuff and get out of here." So what was set to be for a week, and I only got a couple days worth to film there, and then the rest had to be done on green screen and everything else, and we lost a lot of time and a lot of effort. So it was a nightmare, and that's only a part of the problems. I could keep going on and on and on about problems that happened with that project.
Wow.
But after that, I was like, I don't even think I want to make a movie. But it was lucky, or it was fortunate that I had to finish that film, and we did sell it to Lionsgate and everything from there. So we were happy about that, and it helped me get my first agent and manager and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm happy I stuck with it. But after that, I was like thinking, do I really want to be doing this for a living? It really made me question myself.
Wow, oh my goodness. Like, to talk about like that moment, that reflective, like looking back at your entire, like what you've strived for, and then having all of those issues come from it, and then having obviously selling to Lionsgate. So like that full circle moment together with that, that's amazing. That's wild. But congratulations on Lionsgate for going through all of that. Talk about the amazing ending to a story there.
Thank you so much.
That's wonderful. I am curious to know about, like, for you, like having that journey and then going through, obviously going to, getting an agent and doing all that kind of stuff. Like, what was that process like of jumping into that side of the world and the more business side of the world?
Well, you always have to be business savvy in this industry, and you always have to keep your options open and see what's out there. For getting an agent and a manager, it's almost the cat and mouse thing. It doesn't always have to be this way, and there have been situations where people have gotten an agent without having anything, but a lot of times you have to have a completed project to get an agent. So when I had a film, I met with multiple agents, but no one wanted to sign me. But when I sold my film to Lionsgate, and we got a press release on that and everything, then agents wanted to sign me. So it's like nobody wanted to help me beforehand, but people want to help you after the situation.
Interesting.
And that's kind of the thing is that nobody you have to do a lot yourself. And even if you have an agent, you have to still be you have to do your own negotiations a lot of times. You have to get it in the room, all of those different things.
So constantly pushing forward and trying to find those new opportunities.
Exactly. You're not just handing them right away from people.
Yeah.
And that's one mistake people think is, oh, I got an agent now. I'll just sit back and relax and wait for my agent to call me on opportunities. You have to always be hustling and networking out there to get those opportunities.
Well, I think that's a great lesson for anyone in life, is like, no matter what, like always be looking out for new possibilities, new opportunities for yourself. Because at the end of the day, you are the person who's going to do that for yourself. Exactly.
If you have to be your own best cheerleader, because no one else is going to do that for you.
Speaking about projects, you've done so many different genres. Is there a genre that you like to stick to more? Is there one that you want to do more right now? Or do you like doing so many different ones?
So I'm not genre focused, I'm more story focused. Okay. I started out in low budget horror because that is an easy way to make money. Okay. You don't need a major actor in it, and you can still sell it and other things like that. And yeah, people love low budget horror. But it was getting to a point where all I was getting were offers for horror movies, and I was like, ooh, I'm being really badly typecast here. So I jumped over to doing a thriller, and then from there I jumped over to doing a comedy. Okay. And when the comedy that I did was Underdeveloped a little bit ago, that series happened almost really quickly on a whim, but when I was sending it out to companies and stuff, they were expecting a horror script from me. So they would call me back and be like, I read it, but I find myself laughing. Like, I don't know, I'm not trying to offend you or anything. And I'm like, no, it's a comedy. And they're like, oh, because they were like wondering, does somebody die? Does it get horror-like?
Right.
Does it change? Like, wait, I'm waiting for something to happen. So that's another thing, is I had to break myself free of doing just horror and going into other things. Now I like horror, and actually the next project that I'm doing is more on the thriller side, action and that kind of situation. So yeah.
Oh, I love that. Now, speaking about different genres and everything, do you have like movies that you watched growing up that really inspired you now that you just like, they're the movies that stick in your mind forever?
Oh, there are so many movies that I grew up watching, many of which were out before I ever was born.
Yep.
But there are, The Shining is a fantastic film. I really love Stanley Kubrick's directing. Really love Steven Spielberg's work,
Nice.
where I finally got to meet him last year or the year before for like first time in person, and that was exciting.
Oh my gosh.
Jaws is a fantastic film. They're having their 50th anniversary right now.
Yes.
And that movie, if you want to take a lesson in directing, it's really amazingly well done. Just how he does typical talking scenes, and there's always something exciting or interesting happening. Like, there's always depth that he does and everything like that. So that was a really good movie. Indiana Jones, Star Wars, all of these great movies that are out there. There are just so many fantastic films, all the classics, or whatever you want to call. And then, of course, a lot of the other movies, the newer movies, there's always something really good that I see every year that I'm like, ooh, this is really fun and exciting and stuff like that. So it's always changing, but yeah, as a kid, all the classics were really important to me. The Indiana Jones films, the Star Wars films. And I got to see Star Wars in theaters when I was a kid as a re-release or something like that, and everything. So yeah,
Absolutely. No, I think I loved Star Wars growing up. That was a big one I watched with my dad, because that was one that I could love, that was one that he could love. And so I loved watching those. Indiana Jones was obviously another big one, because it was a big action movie for him.
Yes.
So he loved it. I just loved it. I loved action like he did too, so I loved that.
Amazing.
Those kind of movies as well. I have to say a funny story about Jaws though with him. So he's in the hotel industry, and we live down in South Carolina, so by the water.
Oh.
And he's in the hotel industry, so he's by they're on the beach right now in their hotels. His big idea was, we should do a Jaws movie night outside at the beach. And he's like, you could do it where people are actually like in the water, you could do those floating projector things. And I was like, that's a great idea. Let's have little children in the water when Jaws is playing. I think this is the perfect idea to do for Halloween, actually, like scar everyone all at once. So I'm not sure if that's what we'll end up doing there, but I think it'd be hilarious to do it maybe at the pool, maybe not in the beach. Like, we don't want to fully scar everyone there. But it would be really fun to get to kind of do an outside Jaws night. So I love Jaws. My mom actually, when I think I was 8 or 9 years old, she was always a big fan of having me watch movies way too young. So I blame her for any therapy bill I'll have in the future. She decided that instead of school, that I needed to experience Jaws. And she was just going to have me watch the first movie, and it was really late, and my dad was out of town for a work trip. And she says, we're going to watch the first Jaws. We watched the first one. I'm like, oh, this is so good. She's loving it. You would think young me would be scarred at this point. If you stopped at one Jaws, you would have been fine as an 8-year-old. No, she made me watch every single Jaws, even the really bad adaptation, like really, really bad ones. We watched every single Jaws all night long, and I was sick the next morning for school. So, I love Jaws as well. What can you say? You have to have parents for a reason, right?
Of course. My parents very much would prevent me from watching any R-rated movies as a kid. So I ran over to the neighbor's house and would watch them
Perfect.
there. Yeah.
I love that.
I'd always have sleepovers. All my friends would be watching scary horror movies
yes.
and everything, and it'd be great.
I love that. And when we used to live in Texas, next door to us was Shirley. We ended up calling her Aunt Shirley. And she had 2 kids that were my age, were her grandchildren. And so I, of course, would go over there, and I'd hang out in the summer and all that. And we would watch cute little Disney movies when everyone was up. And then, of course, we would go to bed. And then, like, 2 hours later, we'd be clocking. So we knew she was asleep at that point. We'd run out. They had this cool movie room. We'd run in there. We'd all, like, lay on the floor. And we put it on super low so nobody could hear us. And we would watch the craziest movies that none of us should ever have been watching. And if she sees us, I'm so sorry, Shirley. But we would do it, like, every time I slept over. And it's, like, the best memories you could possibly have as a kid.
Nice. Yeah, it's always fun to watch scary horror movies as a kid.
Absolutely, yes.
Absolutely.
Now, speaking of like when you're young, is there something that you wish you would have known getting into this industry in the very, very beginning?
Um, wow, there's a lot of things I wish I would have known. To pinpoint it to one thing is really difficult. I think it's a lot about networking and just making sure to not. I think that you, first of all, a lot of people will lie to you and tell you things that you want to believe because these are adults and you're like, sure, why would they lie to me type situation. But they do. A lot of people tell you they have things. A lot of people will, I don't know how many financiers that I had meetings with and investors who would say to me, yeah, I'm going to fund this project and we're going to get going on this and this and that. And you take them for their word and then they don't. And meanwhile, you put together a group and teams and stuff like that, and then they don't come through on the financing. That happens so many times.
Wow.
You just have to take everything with a grain of salt, I guess, these days. And you have to always be out there networking. Constantly networking is what I say. So
I think that's very good advice. And I think, it's hard, especially when you're young, because you do want to trust everyone, especially, like, I know for me, like, I just, kind of freshly out of college, my first year out of college, and you kind of get thrown to the lion's den really fast.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, whoa, okay, let me, like, pause for a second, and just kind of, like, backtrack and try to figure out those people you really, really trust, and the people that you're like, okay, like, we're going to be friends, I'm going to watch you, keep a little eye out kind of thing. But yeah, trying to understand how do you navigate, how do you network, and who do you trust at the same time in the industry. It's very interesting little world.
Yes, that's definitely saying a lot. I mean, I think you just have to use your instincts a lot of times. And I mean, there are just so many times that people say things and they just don't come through, unfortunately.
Yeah. So no, just I think keep up on everyone too. Like, let me see what you're doing, kind of thing.
Exactly. And also one other thing too is if you're not going to work with somebody now, that doesn't mean you won't work with them 5 years from now. I've had people where I pitched them ideas and projects and they said no, but 5 years later they said yes to something of mine. And so that's an important thing to remember and think about as well.
Absolutely, no, very, very true. I was talking to a literary agent a couple of months back in the book world, my world, and she was talking about that there was this author and she had read her book and she just loved her style of writing, just loved the vibe she gave off, but she didn't connect with the exact kind of plot and the structure of this particular one. But she liked her as a person and she liked the way she wrote. And she said, hey, your next book, come back to me, let me see it. Ended up being 10 years later, she ended up giving her another book and said, hey, I tried for a long time. That book didn't succeed for her, but I have this new book. It's a new idea. It's a new genre, something she had never tried before. But she had gone through a lot in life. And she said, I kind of poured my heart into it, and I found not only her voice, but she found the plot of the story.
Nice.
And so she gave her this book. She said she read like 5 pages, and she knew she was going to sign her. She knew that no matter what, she would figure out how to get this book into a publisher's hand, and ended up being one of her like top clients at the end of the day. But it just comes full back around. So it's again, like, never get discouraged, never lose hope, because again, like, you're right, you could work with somebody down in the future, and you just never know. So always be nice to people too.
Yeah,
I think that's
don't burn
thing.
bridges.
Yeah.
Try to keep relationships and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
That's important for sure.
Absolutely. Is there projects right now that you can't talk about? Anything that you want to tell us?
Sure. Well, this just got released in Deadline, so we can talk about it. I have a new project called Outsider. We just did a table read for it this morning at Authentic Talent Literary Management, which is my management company.
So cool. Okay.
It was, we're really excited about that. We have some great actors that have come on board and some actors that we're negotiating that we can't talk about yet.
Okay.
But we have Mark Pellegrino, he was from the Supernatural series, and Thomas Ian Nicholas from the American Pie films, and we have Matt Ryan, who played Constantine and on the TV series, and Sam Levine, who was in Inglourious Bastards or whatever. But we have some other really exciting actors that we can't talk about because their deals aren't done yet or whatever, whatnot, that we're excited to share in the future press release.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Well, I can't wait to hear more about it, but I'm a huge Supernatural girl, so I knew exactly when you said, I was like, yep. I'll be watching just 100% now.
Nice.
But that is so cool. And I have to ask, what is it like to get to do like the table read of your own project like that, to like see and hear other people reading your words for the first time?
It's very exciting, and it's a great way to see what works and doesn't work. To be honest, this particular table read, we had to rush, and we're moving fast on this project. So I was doing rewrites on a first draft last night, so it was only the second draft that I had turned in for today. And I've never done anything so sloppy before. So I'm sitting there writing notes and going, okay, this doesn't work and this does work, and it just gives you an idea of why something works and doesn't work, to hear it played out and certain things, and to hear your dialogue, to see if it feels natural or not, or where certain things are confusing and stuff like that. It's always really good to hear and have, but it's a lot of fun too to watch it come to life and stuff. So.
That's amazing. I can't imagine like these characters that you've heard in your head for so long, and now they have a voice coming to life around you. It's a very magical experience, I'm sure. But you've got to do it so many times now. So.
It's even more fun when you get to film it and watch the actual scene done and everything like that.
That is so cool. It was my very first time to be on a film set a couple of months ago, and actually like I was acting in it, and it was my first time like seeing like how it's all set up with the mics and the cameras, and like how like this scene gets shot way before the first scene ever got shot, and my brain's like, how does that, like, I don't know how any of this is happening right now, but it was such a magical experience to see it all coming together there. It was just so, I mean, getting to read the script and then going like, whoa, that person really does sound like that, or wow, that person was not at all in my head, but they're so much better than what was in my head.
Right.
Such a cool.
It's a fun experience, isn't it? It's always really fun being on set. I love being on set, and it's one of those things that I don't ever want to give up. So.
Absolutely. I guess movie magic, right? I guess
Absolutely. And it's something that I'm excited to get started on filming for my next project. So yeah, it'll be cool.
Cool. I can't wait for us to get to kind of follow you as you do that. And thank you so much for taking the time to like sit here with me in your crazy busy schedule.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, we will definitely keep up with everything you're doing.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thanks.